Today, we will recap the 1980 Bollywood movie, The Burning Train, supposedly inspired by the 1974 Hollywood disaster film, The Towering Inferno. The story begins at the Railway Museum, where Mr. Verma takes his son Vinod and his friends Ashok and Randhir. A debate ensues between Vinod and Randhir about building the fastest engine, while Ashok, on the other hand, has a passion for fast cars. Vinod keeps Randhir at a distance due to his angry nature, which only grows with age. Ashok's father is a renowned railway contractor, which often requires Ashok to attend railway functions. Randhir also arrives at one such function with his mother. He brings his mother there to show her a girl, Sheetal, whom Vinod also finds appealing. Meanwhile, Ashok is drawn to Seema. Randhir's father, who is the chairman of the railway board, wishes to send a marriage proposal to Sheetal's family, but Vinod outsmarts him once again. Despite his efforts, Randhir is unable to do anything. This was a personal setback for Randhir, but professionally as well, Vinod surpasses him. The railway board selects Vinod's design for the country's fastest train, the Super Express. Designs by Rakesh and Randhir had also made it to the final selection stage. While Rakesh is happy for Vinod's success, as always, Randhir cannot tolerate the defeat. Ashok, too, is very happy for his friend's success and rushes to congratulate him enthusiastically. Ashok promises Vinod that when the Super Express is ready, he will personally wave the green flag at its inauguration. Ashok is eager to get married, but Seema tells him she wants to undertake a pilgrimage to Amarnath before marriage. During this time, Ashok's father suffers a huge business loss and ends up taking his own life. Following this tragedy, Ashok loses everything: his mansion, car, and factory. Upon returning from her pilgrimage, Seema also breaks off their engagement. Shaken by these unexpected blows, Ashok distances himself from everyone. On the other hand, Vinod dedicates himself day and night to his project. His pursuit of creating the fastest train distances him from his family and friends. 6 years pass by, and finally, Vinod's train is ready. To celebrate its launch, Sheetal throws a party, which Vinod is unable to attend. The next day marks the first journey of the train. However, Sheetal refuses to listen to anything Vinod says. The story then introduces a pickpocket who crashes a wedding uninvited, while the bride attempts to flee from the wedding. She seizes an opportunity, escapes with all her jewelry, and is pursued by the same pickpocket. Along the way, they come across the Super Express, adorned like a bride itself. The train excites many passengers, as it promises to reduce the journey from Delhi to Mumbai from 23 hours to 14 hours. Despite his promise, Ashok does not show up to wave the green flag, but quietly boards the train as a passenger. Rakesh's family is also traveling on the train. Sheetal arrives at the station to send Raju to her grandmother's home in Mumbai, which leaves Vinod displeased. Vinod's father flags off the train, and it departs the station. Somehow, the runaway bride and the pickpocket also manage to board the train. To receive his wife and the train in Mumbai, Rakesh prepares to travel by flight. Along with ticketed passengers, many without tickets board the train, and to everyone's surprise, Randhir is also on board. As the train leaves Nizamuddin station, a passenger runs and hops onto it. Among the passengers, a clergyman has his eyes fixed on someone. After sending Raju away, Sheetal decides to leave home herself, believing Vinod loves his train more than anyone else. Ashok, irritated by the noise in his compartment, moves to the dining car, where he sees Seema and her co-passenger. The sight of them causes him to break a glass in frustration. Seema attempts to talk to him, but Ashok walks away. The train's success prompts celebrations in the control room, where everyone congratulates Vinod. However, the two people he cherishes the most are not with him during this moment of joy. The runaway bride is still being followed by the pickpocket, who eventually reveals that her father is a diamond merchant in Delhi. The clergyman, meanwhile, is tailing a couple named Chandra and Razia. Finding an opportunity, he sneaks into their cabin and rummages through their luggage. He finds diamonds in a vanity box but is caught by Chandra, leading to a fierce fight. The clergyman pulls out a gun and fires, but Chandra overpowers him. The clergyman then reveals himself as Inspector Ranbir, while Chandra is identified as a smuggler. To escape, Chandra uses Raju as a shield. Just then, Ashok arrives and hands Chandra over to the inspector. Raju runs to Seema to share what happened, with Ashok following behind. Ashok informs her that he will disembark at the next station and asks Seema to safely escort Raju to Mumbai. Before leaving, he places a letter and their engagement ring on her table. Meanwhile, Randhir, traveling with the train conductor, learns that the train is approaching Mathura. Upon reaching Mathura, Randhir begins his real mission. He plants a time bomb in the train engine's toolbox. Ashok also disembarks at Mathura after leaving Raju with Seema. Finally, the pickpocket gets the opportunity he has been waiting for. He pulls the emergency chain to stop the train. Despite the pickpocket's efforts, the train does not stop. However, the bride stands in front of him, and now he begins to steal her heart. Meanwhile, two old friends who lost in love meet at a bar. Under the influence of alcohol, Randhir confesses everything. He reveals to Ashok that he has removed the vacuum brake from the train engine and planted a small time bomb. Before Ashok can inform the police, Randhir attacks him. After dealing with Randhir, Ashok runs to stop the train. Meanwhile, to pass the time, the passengers begin singing and playing music on the train. Randhir had mentioned that the bomb would explode at exactly 5:10. While the passengers are engaged in a musical session, Ashok gives it his all to stop the train. It also seems like the pickpocket is succeeding in stealing the bride's heart. When the car breaks down, Ashok finds a motorcycle and races to catch up with the train. The train speeds toward the station of death. At 5:05, the train leaves the station, and Ashok manages to catch up and board it. When the guard refuses to let him into the compartment, Ashok breaks a glass window. The guard refuses to believe Ashok's claim about the bomb. When Ashok informs the driver about the bomb, it explodes in the engine. At the next small station, an employee informs that the driver did not give the proceed signal. The station master immediately relays this information to the next station. At Ratlam station, the station master and many people eagerly await the train. Upon hearing the news, the station master clears the area, but the uncontrollable super express speeds past the station without stopping. The passengers aboard the train become increasingly anxious. Upon learning about this, chaos breaks out in the control room, and the railway board declares an emergency meeting. The assistant driver of the Super Express is found injured on the tracks, and this information reaches the control room. Before dying, the driver had informed them about the bomb. Vinod explains that the train can now only be stopped using the emergency brake. The chairman reminds him that the train is running at 100 miles per hour. The guard and Ashok, aware of the vacuum brake's failure, try to move toward the engine. Somehow, they are pulled into the next compartment. In the pantry, someone is preparing food when they hear the news. Without turning off the gas, they run toward the compartment. Amidst all this tension, Raju listens to a song on his radio. Suddenly, an announcement for the Super Express passengers is made on the radio, instructing them to confirm the message by throwing a red cloth at the next station. A passenger refuses to offer her red wedding sari, but then another woman gives hers. The pickpocket throws the red sari onto the platform at the next station. Hearing the news, Raju's mother also rushes to the control room. Vinod tries to calm her, explaining that along with Raju, there are 500 passengers on the train. Information about the red cloth on the platform also reaches the control room. Vinod then addresses the passengers via the radio, explaining the emergency brake procedure. Ashok, the pickpocket, and the guard prepare to go to the engine. The bride and Seema tell them to take care of themselves. The three climb onto the moving train's roof, and at the same time, Rakesh's wife begins experiencing labor pains. Seema's co-passenger turns out to be a doctor. The doctor instructs the ticket collector to bring hot water. The attendant is sent to the pantry car, where gas is still leaking. Meanwhile, Ashok and his companions are steadily advancing toward the engine. As soon as the attendant ignites the lighter, an explosion occurs in the pantry car. The attendant gets badly burned, and the guard falls off the roof of the train. Panic ensues inside the train, and outside, Ashok is seen hanging off the side of the train, holding on to the pickpocket who is about to fall. After much effort, both manage to climb back into a compartment. Ashok finds Seema crying in the dining car. He cannot understand why she is sitting there, despite the fire spreading. Ashok is still angry with her, but then a burning panel falls from the ceiling. Ashok pulls Seema away just in time and notices that one of her legs is artificial. She reveals that she had an accident while returning from her Amarnath pilgrimage, leading to the loss of her leg, which is why she distanced herself from Ashok. Realizing this, Ashok feels deeply ashamed. The latest update informs the control room that 3 people are heading toward the engine. News also arrives that the Super Express is now on fire. On board, Ashok takes control of the situation, and everyone works together in vain to extinguish the fire. There are school children on the train, and their teacher reports that one child is missing, last seen heading to the restroom. Ashok risks his life to save the child, but, tragically, a newlywed couple is not as fortunate. Efforts to spray water onto the moving train also fail. Determined not to give up, Vinod arranges for a helicopter. On the other hand, Randhir, intent on defeating Vinod, insists on boarding the helicopter himself. He demands the pilot take the helicopter closer to the train. Despite the pilot's refusal to approach the engine, Randhir forces him to move closer. As Randhir jumps from the helicopter, it explodes. Meanwhile, the relatives of the passengers confront Vinod, who is visibly shaken. At this critical moment, Sheetal stands by Vinod and encourages him. On board the train, the pickpocket now fully supports Ashok. Mumbai Central Station is evacuated. Rakesh devises a plan to stop the train by building a 1-mile incline filled with sand on both sides. Although his senior doubts they have enough time, Rakesh insists they have no other choice and begins supervising the construction of the incline. Meanwhile, the Super Express continues racing toward Mumbai like a fireball. To control the spreading fire, Ashok and the pickpocket separate the train into two sections. Some young men cheer at this success, but Raja Sahib reminds them that although the fire has been stopped, the train has not. Facing death, the thief confesses everything to the bride. Her name is Madhu, and after hearing his truth, she forgives him. Following the teacher's advice, the children pray to God for mercy, and it seems their prayers are answered. After the helicopter plan fails, Vinod devises another strategy. He plans to send another engine alongside the Super Express and deploy men onto it. When the chairman questions who would risk their life, Vinod volunteers himself. Inside the train, the passengers hear the sound of another engine and look out. At this moment, Chandra seizes the opportunity to kill Inspector Randir and takes his gun. Outside, Vinod prepares to board the Super Express. As ropes are set up between the two engines, Vinod gets ready to carry out his daring plan. Chandra arrives at the scene. He knows that if the train stops, his arrest is inevitable, so escaping from the train becomes his priority. He calls Razia to the roof, but instead, an army officer reaches the roof and grabs Chandra from behind. However, Chandra manages to throw the officer off the train. He then attempts to throw Ashok off the train as well. Meanwhile, Vinod sends his bag to the Super Express and moves toward the train himself. Just then, a pole obstructs his way, narrowly saving his life. Determined not to give up, Vinod risks his life once again. With Ashok's help, he finally boards the Super Express. On board, Vinod meets Raju. Vinod has brought fireproof suits and explosives with him. The three of them wear the fireproof suits and begin advancing toward the engine. They eventually reach the engine, where Randir is waiting for them, ready to thwart their efforts. Randir is determined to see Vinod fail at all costs. To stop the train, Vinod has to make a significant sacrifice. Upon entering the engine, they find the driver's lifeless body. Vinod attempts to apply the emergency brake, but all the engine's controls have failed. Ashok reminds him about the dynamite. Vinod suggests that the incline is the best place to use it. The dynamite can separate the engine from the coaches, but the passengers must first be secured to their seats. Vinod contacts Rakesh to ask how much of the incline has been completed. Rakesh informs him that the work is still ongoing. Vinod instructs him to divert the train onto the incline. Reluctantly, Rakesh complies. Ashok and Vinod attach the dynamite to the coupling between the engine and the train coaches. The pickpocket heads back to instruct all the passengers to strap themselves to their seats. The train speeds toward the incline. Rakesh clears the incline and transfers the train onto it. As soon as the train starts climbing the incline, the coupling is blasted apart. The engine continues uncontrollably, while the coaches somehow come to a stop. As the train comes to a halt, the fire brigade arrives. Passengers begin to escape from the train, running to save their lives. In the end, Ashok and Vinod succeed in stopping the train. So, what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.